in emotional pain because she's been unable to conceive, and in her day and time, that placed her at a disadvantage. We know that she's been crying. We know that she has been so distressed that she's gone for days unable to eat. That's the state that she's in, and yet she has hope. She has hope on her heart and hope on her lips as she is there at this holy place praying to God, and she's misunderstood by the people around her. And so this is a story about hope as being what comes before God's reversals. You have so many stories in the Bible of God turning things around, reversals. So today I want to talk about hope and how we might understand it. Now, one lofty idea for understanding hope is this, that hope is, it's a rehearsal for the reversals that God will give. And that sounds poetic and everything, but I think a better way of understanding what hope is to say that hope is like some kids building a fort. And fortunately, we have kids building a fort right now. Are you the supervisor now? Yeah. Eliana, you may never get out of there. Oh, I think you can get out of there. Now we need, that's why I had the, the tall thing so that you have some height to it. Okay. And you can get in the fort, out of the fort. I'm going in the fort. That's where I'm going to be preaching from this morning. Okay. So, hope is like building a fort, like children building a fort. You want to take a union break? Okay, you take a union. Come on in here and join me in the fort. How are you going to get in, Xander? Do you want to come into my fort? Come on in. We got chairs here. Do you want to sit down in a chair? We got big chair, little chair, and outside, a lovely fort. Go ahead, make yourself at home. Okay. You want more of a roof on it? Is that enough? So hang out here and play, and when you're done playing, head on back to Mom and Grandma. Thanks for making the fort, okay? There you go. You want to stay in the fort? You're welcome to. Building a fort requires imagination, okay? And imagination means seeing the potential in things, seeing what is not there. It's one way of thinking about faith. And Hannah is able to imagine that God is going to turn things around for her. That imagination that children have, not being limited by what something's supposed to be used by. We've got blankets here that are supposed to be used on a bed, but they work for a fort. Confess, we lose that imagination when we get older, and that's why we enjoy watching children with their imagination. Children have the ability to see things for what they can be, and that's what's happening with Hannah in the story. She's able to see that what's not yet, God's fulfilled promise, as already being part of her. And so when she prays, she's admitting God into her life. Building a fort is about seeing the holy in everyday things. Again, these are blankets that are supposed to be in a bed. These are chairs that are supposed to be over there, but we can bring them together and make something special out of them. We don't have to be limited by the idea that, well, that's not good enough to make a fort. And so we have this sanctuary that is created for us, this safe place. That's what a fort is for children. It's going so far as to say that having the imagination to see the holy potential of something is an act of defiance in this world. The world says, there's nothing more than what you can see. And in defiance, we say, I believe there's more than what we can see. The world says to us, you don't really matter. And in defiance, we say, in God's eyes, we matter. And this is what Hannah is able to do. Hannah can see that God is at work, but the most holy person in the land, the head priest Eli, gets tripped up and can't see the holy at work right before his eyes. He sees this praying woman and he assumes that she's had too much to drink. The holy is right in front of him and he can't see it. That's what the world does sometimes to us. There's this experiment in psychology to see how people's minds work. And you'll see the ingredients that go into this experiment. And maybe some of you will remember that I've shown this to you before. But you've got a candle, you've got a box of tacks, you've got some matches. And the instructions that are given to the participants is, can you get the candle up on the wall and light it? And people approach it and they try figuring out, all right, what can we? So what's one way that you could do this? The tacks maybe, pierce them through the candle, but no, the tacks aren't long enough. People struggle to figure out how to put it together, and then they realize that they're stuck with this thing called, psychology calls functional fixedness. When we look at something, we think, oh, it's a chair, it can only be used for sitting down. Children look at it and they go, that's a wall to a fort. God looks at something and says, that is an opportunity for my grace in this world. Given enough time, people will figure out, if you take the tacks and you stick the box to the wall, you overcome the functional fixedness, which is, well, the box's role is to hold the tacks and nothing else. Imagination allows us to look past what we think things are for and allow God to work through us in important ways. And that's what's happening in this story. The other thing about hope and building a fort is that it's about contentment. Hope says, I have enough already. I may not have the best materials for creating something, but a kid says, I can look around me and I can figure out how to make a fort out of whatever is available. I'm content with what's available. I'm happy to work with what's simple. Simplicity is my friend, the children show us. Being content with what we have keeps us from always wishing we had more, as if we need the more in order to be happy in our lives. Hope is about contentment. The final thing I want to say about hope is that it's a form of curiosity. Hope makes us curious about what's possible. And so hope is like a fort, because how many adults can resist walking past their kids in a fort and not wanting to crawl in. Like, I know that you know that there's part of you right now that's like, when I walk out of the sanctuary this morning, I'd love to come into the fort and read a book to the kids, or maybe we'd play a game with the kids. A fort with kids in it makes us desire to participate. God's hope makes us curious for what is possible. And that's what's happening in this story, if only the chief priest would recognize it sooner. But he does recognize that that's what's happening. And he's able to participate curiously, openly, with what God is up to in Israel. So, circling back to the beginning, if hope is rehearsal for God's reversals, turning things around, then Thanksgiving, this thing that we're celebrating, it's like the reception of the gift of God. It's like the reception that comes with a party, where we're able to give a gift back. Thanks is always accompanied by giving. These are the words of Hannah, the first part of Hannah's prayer of thanksgiving to God. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart exalts in the Lord. My strength is exalted in my God. There is no holy one like the Lord, no one besides you." In our lives, by allowing ourselves to be hopeful, and from that hope to build places where we can be aware of God, allows us to be thankful. Like we do at this table each week, we say, well, how has God blessed me this week? And how do I open my heart to giving back? What Hannah did is Hannah said, I'm going to give my child, Samuel, to God. And in the weeks to come, we're going to hear the rest of that story. What happened when Samuel grew up as a servant of God and how it changed everything about the course of Israel. Amen. Let's sing.